The American election is really about the American dream and the erosion thereof. If you're voting for the Democrats on Tuesday, November 3rd, or if you already have, I'm a bit disappointed in you because it's your choice. It's a free country for the next few days at least. Because if your mate Biden gets in with Kamala Harris, your liberties are going to be somewhat restricted from January onwards. There could be a honeymoon period, a settling in period of about 6 months, but then after that, buyer's remorse will kick in a very big way, and you'll be wishing for the return of Donald Trump, because his presidency may have been a bit, shall we say, turbulent, but it was eventful in a positive way. Except for the COVID, of course, the China plague, as he says. And it was the China plague. It didn't come from Minneapolis. It didn't come from New Orleans. It didn't come from Florida. It didn't come from Fargo. It came from Wuhan in China. And as long ago as December. Early December, in fact, although China kept a tight lid on it. They didn't let on to the rest of the world what was going on because they were doing their propaganda and they were doing their public relations, trying to figure out how do we put a positive spin on this. And they got the positive spin and all the public relations they needed from a little thing called the World Health Organization, who were on board with them from day one. Even warning in late January that you shouldn't be shaking hands, and if you're in affected areas, you could do a certain amount of social distancing, but do not under any circumstances shake hands. And then we see this photograph beamed around the world on January 31 of good old Teddy Boy, the head of the World Health Organization, the Ethiopian boy made good. Or was he from Sudan? I can't remember. But by golly, wouldn't we all like a look at his bank account? This picture of him shaking hands. Yes, shaking hands with none other than the Communist Party leader, President Xi of China, who is not wearing a mask, and neither is the head of the World Health Organization. And of course, at January 31, the World Health Organization was only regarding this plague, this pandemic, as an emergency. It was only an emergency. However, Donald Trump, the President of the United States, had already taken positive steps to curtail all travel to and from China by then, because he could tell, his gut instinct was that this was going to be a major problem, although nobody really knew how bad it was going to be. Perhaps it could be contained, perhaps it couldn't be contained. But all they could do was sit back and wait and see what happens, and that being from the World Health Organization's intelligence, inverted commas. Well, even by the end of February, the World Health Organization was still reluctantly calling it an emergency, and then they called it an epidemic. And I think about March 11, the 11th of March, they called it a pandemic. Well, Donald Trump had done a lot between the middle of February and the 11th of March to take positive steps to combat this virus, this China virus. And he deserves some credit. Now, they got a population of 329 million in America, and they've had let's just round it up. Let's say they've had 250,000 deaths. They haven't, but let's say they have. They've been doing more tests than most countries around the world, so obviously they're having 80, 90, 100,000 infections a day now. But it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't, because at least they've identified where the virus is and how many deaths are being recorded. Let's find that out before the election, shall we? Because I think you'll find out that the death rate is not as bad as what the Democrats are making out. Sure, we'd like to have 40,000 or 20,000 or 0 cases of COVID, but these are cases. These are not hospitalizations. I suspect that it's approximately 10-12% of the cases that are hospitalizations. So, well, let's round it up. Let's say if it's 100,000 cases a day, about 10,000 people are going to hospital, and of that, maybe 1% are ending up on ventilators. That you'll find that those figures are fairly accurate. So, the sky is not falling. Past pandemics have had far greater death tolls than this. So the Democrats are very wrongly and viciously beating this up out of all proportion. Because it could have been a lot worse. It could have been 1 or 2 million dead by now for sure, because look what happened at New York. I mean, they went from having no ventilators to getting 40,000 ventilators that they didn't really need. And that was all by Donald Trump's doing. He had a Democrat mayor and a Democrat governor in New York condemning him left, right and centre, but all along he still played along with them. He didn't play politics. He said, what do you need? We'll get it to you as soon as we possibly can. And he even sent around a couple of ships as floating hospitals. And again, they weren't needed 100% either, only about 20% use, I think. But he provided them. He took very positive action. Got no credit, but what do we expect from the Democrats and the nasty party media? Anyway, you've got to vote on the 3rd of November. If you voted for the Democrats, I really got to question your mentality. You're probably too far gone to bring you back to the land of normal thinking and rational thinking. But it's going to be frightening. If Biden gets in, it's going to be frightening. Absolutely frightening. Because it's going to be absolute chaos. I mean, it'll be open borders. You'll have millions of South Americans pouring in over the southern borders. You'll have people flying in left, right and centre from other parts of the world seeking green cards. And I can't believe that they're proposing to give American citizenship. They're just cheapening American citizenship to immigrants. They're not even expecting them to wait 2 or 3 years to get their green cards. So the message that they're sending out to the world is, come one, come all. We don't care if you got criminal records. We don't care if you're rapists. We don't care if you're pedophiles. Come to America, the land of opportunity. And, get on the queues for Social Security before Americans have been born here, generations before them also. So go at the head of the queue. It's just not fair. There's going to be a huge outcry and there's going to be huge unemployment spikes. I guarantee within 2.5 years, a Biden regime is going to have unemployment in America of about 13 or 14%. The Dow is going to go through the floor to approximately 22,000 within 12 months. It's currently about 28,000. When Trump came to power in 2016, it was about 18,000. Okay? So, and Obama's claiming the credit for the stock market, and what an idiot he was. He had nothing to do with the current robustness of the stock market. It's 28,000 now because of Donald Trump. If Obama had have still been in power, it would have been hovering around 20,000 at best. And he would have been claiming credit for that because compared to what he'd had before, it'd be much better. But honestly, Trump is the hardest working president America has ever had. His work ethic is to be admired. The Democrats, all they did from day one was whinge and whine and try to effect a coup d'etat, an administrative coup d'etat from day one. They committed high treason on a weekly basis. Brennan should be in prison. Comey should be in prison. The Clintons should definitely be in prison. And Pelosi should be in prison. So should Schumer. And absolutely Adam Schiff. No Nads Nadler. And that nasty Maxine Waters. What a nasty piece of work she is. And that other clown, that woman whose name is Kay something, calling the president and a mother effer on a microphone in front of... I mean, this is the party that talks about, oh, it's all about character. We're putting character on the table. We're putting decency on the table. I mean, they got on microphones and loudhailers threatening to punish Supreme Court judges who don't vote the right way. They got on microphones and loudhailers suing people onto Republicans at restaurants, getting into their faces and getting into Republicans from Congress or the Senate when they're out with their families. And this is what happened. They were inciting violence. They were inciting urban terrorism. Sorry, if you're voting Democrats, you're a genetic defect as far as I'm concerned, and I have no respect for you.